please.
Could Huzur kindly explain us, give us information about his last journey to Canada and Alaska, please?
This last journey to Canada has been very useful in many ways and very productive. New experiences were gained by us. It related to many subjects, in fact. First of all, perhaps the readers would like to know, the viewers would like to learn from my own lips my impressions about the landscape and the new world which we discovered there. After giving a short description as to what I found, then I shall turn to other issues, inshallah. First of all, the general impression which I had, at least, if not others have, was a completely different impression of Alaska, the one we discovered there. Alaska was not at all the sort of place which we expected it to be, because the name of Alaska connects it with the North Pole. And anything which is connected to the North Pole gives the idea of immense cold and shivering and the wildlife of North Pole, polar bears and other animals which are specific to that habitat. So with that idea we went to Alaska, but we found it to be a completely different place. Perhaps it was the wrong season for us to visit Alaska. Normally the sort of winter we expected does come, but rather delayed. In other northern regions of Canada and Norway, the cold starts much earlier than it starts there. So largely we found places which are extremely barren. There were neither snow nor water, and only stinted growth of trees which were crying for water, but there were no rains. We covered a large mountain range while reaching Alaska, which presented a scene of desolation, in the sense that every growth we found was stunted. Small trees, thin trunks, and they seemed to be so delicate as could die with any fierce change in the weather. How they could survive that dryness was amazing. And the temperature was not very cold either on those heights. Just normal temperature, much less than what we expected to be at such great mountain heights. We crossed over the highest mountain range of Alaska, and yet we failed to discover the life which we expected to discover there. First, let it be translated, then I'll explain further, because this subject is rather alien to him and it will take time to explain. When we inquired about these strange things from knowledgeable people, we were told that there was very little rain in the entire region of Alaska. And because of that, the snowfall was also very insignificant. But whatever snow fell on these mountains did take very long to melt and to flow down, leaving dry, empty spaces above. Whatever snow fell on those trees, it remained there. And it fell down to the region of the trunk where it was jutting out. And it remained there for very long, with the result that with the slow pressure of its weight, the water, it melted, and the water gradually sank deep into the root area of the trees. So, although that water was not sufficient to give them a big growth, yet it was sufficient enough to make them survive during the summer months. So that is a natural phenomenon which operates there and to which we were introduced. And because of the northerliness of the region, geographical northerliness, the tundra look which we observed, they told us is a natural part of this area being far too northern. Yet the greatest surprise was yet to come, because naturally we expected that after we cross over this dry region of high mountain range, we will ultimately, as we were heading north, we will ultimately enter the area which was comparatively flat but happened to be more northerly, closer to the North Pole. So we were going to Fairbanks, which is the capital of Alaska, and it is a biggish town of 100,000 population. So nowhere in that far north can you find such population of a city as you find in Fairbanks. It was quite a few hundred miles north of what I am describing. So we expected Fairbanks to be very cold, and for that we were prepared. We took heavy coats and jackets and mufflers and caps, covering the ears as well. So we went, at last we climbed down to the other side and started a journey which was almost flat. It had ups and downs, but not mountainous ups and downs. Hilly, a plateau-like area with hills. We went down and came up. So we started towards the direction of Fairbanks. And when we arrived at Fairbanks, we entered the hotel straight away, and we had no personal experience of what sort of weather there would be. The hotel was air-conditioned. We looked out from the windows and wondered at what we will find the day after when we will go out for a walk. So I told my bodyguards and others to carry all the essential requirements of a very cold walk. And I took the heaviest jacket I had with me and put my sweaters on. And Nasir, who was accompanying me, he was carrying a cap which is fit only for Eskimos, So next morning we went out for a walk. Imagine our amazement. It was so warm. It was so warm. It was impossible to wear any jacket or any cap which was offered me. So I rejected them and told him to carry these jackets, if you please. And then after a few steps I realized that it was impossible for me to continue to wear the sweater. So I took the sweater off. And then I thought perhaps now in one shirt I'll be all right. But I was amazed to find other walkers even without shirts, in their knickers, The weather reminded me of Karachi, not of a place as far north as it is. So the northernmost city of Alaska is so warm in late September touching October. Amazing. So that was the first shock of discovering Alaska. It's so different from our expectations. But Fairbanks is a beautiful town. The areas around the small mountain hills and things are very pretty. And the trees there are much larger than the trees we had encountered much far south behind. Because the area is not at all a northerly area in its habitat, in its flora, etc. It's so different. So because of the fall, the trees were of two colors. Some trees are evergreen, which remain green even in the winter. But some trees change color with the change of the weather. So those trees which change color presented beautiful hues of red and yellow and shades in between. That the entire jungle was very beautiful to look at, but not at all like the one you expect in the northern regions, as far north as Fairbanks is. Now, another surprising thing, which we were informed by the local people, was that within a month or so, the temperature will change rapidly and will fall down like a ton of bricks, which will even touch -60 at some periods of the winter. Normally, it remains wavering around -40. They said the same Fairbanks will be a completely different place to live in. And this is the extremes of weather which Alaska witnesses, or which happens in Alaska. They told us that the reason why it is so is because of lack of rains. And there is no ice or snow even in the northernmost part of Alaska. The northernmost part of Alaska remained accessible by motor vehicles throughout the season. We could have gone to the northernmost part, which is beyond the Arctic Circle. Imagine. Were you with us in Norway when we went beyond the Arctic Circle? In Norway, it was all snow beyond the Arctic Circle. Here, you could go as far north as many degrees beyond the Arctic Circle beginning, rim of the Arctic Circle. And they told us there was no obstruction of snow turned into ice on the roads. We could go there, but everything was closed. No arrangements for bed and breakfast, no resting places, no facilities, nothing. Because of the season, because of the fact that the season of tourists was over, not because of the weather. You see? So everything was closed, petrol pumps, food shops, etc., etc. You could not go anywhere for toilet. So all beyond Fairbanks was shut. So we gave up the idea of going to the north because it was meaningless and it was extremely difficult to go there without finding any place. But to the northernmost point, which is called, I think, Barrow. Is it Barrow? But whatever it is, there is population and a small township. And if we could go there by aeroplane, for instance, there we could find normal life, hotels and everything, And although they were mostly closed, but still we could find some open ones as well. So we were invited by the people of that town. Particularly, I was invited by the mayor of the town to have our Jummah prayer set there in the town hall. And they offered whatever facilities they could. But the plane which we arranged for carrying us to the spot, because otherwise the land journey was very slow and time consuming. So the plane people, the company which owned the plane, they told us that one of the planes which could carry all the passengers is out of order, and the available plane required extra petrol to be carried because there are no petrol pumps. So if we go by that plane to that remote region, most of the passengers will have to be dropped because of the extra petrol tank, and the aeroplane could only carry 5 passengers or so. That was meaningless, absolutely meaningless for us. We had a large contingent and we wanted to go there in number and perform our Jummah prayer there. And additionally, I didn't want to take any risk with that plane. The northern region sometimes has northern storms, although no ice or snow falls. No snow falls, turned into ice later. But the northern storms also, do come and, create an uproar in all the area. And a small plane like that would be a sitting target for these storms to destroy it. So for the sake of these precautions as well, we called the tour off. That was Fairbanks was as far north as we could go. After his translation, I'll start my journey back from there and tell you what we saw. One thing which I must tell by way of comparison between American attitude and that of the Norwegian government's or people's attitude. Americans are highly commercialized people and highly commercial-minded people. They will not waste their money at all on such tourists who do not fully justify their visit in large numbers, so that the hotels and petrol pumps can remain open entirely on the money they spent on such things. So when the visitors trickle slows down, they shut all such places, even petrol pumps. But the Norwegian attitude is completely different. We have been there during a season when very few visitors went northwards. In fact, during all seasons, very few visitors go to the North Cape of Canada, of Switzerland, of Norway. North Cape is slightly further on in the direction of the North Pole, still quite some distance from there, but slightly ahead of the northernmost point of Alaska. When we went there, as I told you, there were very few visitors, yet, and most of the places which are hotels and motels, etc., were closed down. Yet, they had all the facilities open. All the toilets were open. Petrol pumps were open. And petrol was available right up to the north. So we couldn't have carried gallons of petrol with us because of these facilities, it's fantastic how the Norwegian people take care of visitors, while the Americans, being much richer, could not take care of the people as they did. You know, we went to the North Pole, we said our Juma prayer there, not the North Pole, the North Cape, and the whole area was covered with snow. Even before the Arctic Circle, as we entered Arctic Circle, we could see snow all around. But Arctic Circle was all covered with snow. Yet the facilities were available. As I said, petrol was available right to the top. So it made it possible for us to go there, despite the fact that many motels, etc., were closed. But in Alaska, the story is a different story of a people who are highly advanced in their commercial experience, and the highly commercialized people, and they manage things technically, not for the sake of stray visitors here and there. But anyway, we returned from Fairbanks to southwards. And it was an amazing thing that the road we took, the main road which connects, the highway which connects Fairbanks with Canada, on our way back, was the most beautiful road which we experienced anywhere during the visit to Alaska. This road was, first of all, American roads are excellent, there is no doubt about it. But on both sides, there was vast valley which would be speckled by different trees of different colors and hues and bushes, and there were small lakes created here and there, and beautiful scene of running water everywhere on this side, on that side, which we did not experience during our crossing over the mountain ridge. And throughout, the road was reminiscent of some parts of Norway, but not entirely. Still, it was very beautiful indeed. I hope we'll be able to show you some scenes, because I told Mr. Malik Ashfaq to video record all the scenes to be shown later on in our different programs. So inshallah, in Liqa Ma'al Arab, whatever I have said about Alaska, some scenes will be shown by Mr. Ashfaq Malik, with whom you can have a session. He will show you, tell you, all that I have said here will be demonstrated by showing you the movie of those areas. So anyway, that road, which was many hundred miles to the border of Canada, was covered by us in one day. It was about 700 miles some, which we covered in one day. And from then, we entered the Canadian border. As you enter the Canadian border, the things change, drastically change. The greenery, the water, the cold, the mountain atmosphere and everything is far more enhanced on Canadian side than on the Alaska side. Please. About the people in Fairbanks, I must inform you that they have a much larger mixture of local people who, before Americans took over, had inhabited those areas for thousands of years. And Fairbanks is one town in America where you can see a large proportion of local people. So we ran across them everywhere, and they made, I don't know what part of the population they made, but they are far more visible and the Americans. So in that northern area, at least, we can see the semblance of the old past in which these people had been the masters of the area. They are very kind people, very friendly to foreigners. They nodded and they responded to your friendly gestures much more than you can observe in New York or Washington, etc. And although the American border is in that remote area does not handle a large flow of immigrants from one area to the other, still the American staff there is a bit stiff-necked. Like they are always at immigration points. It's amazing that even in such areas where the common people there are very friendly and kindly and deeply interested in foreigners and their way of life, the immigration staff at American posts is very stiff-necked, and they look down from the material heights of America and American Empire State Building at you as if you're a small pygmy somewhere below. That attitude was reduced to a degree in that border post. As it was not as stiff as we had expected and we had encountered elsewhere during our entry into America. But still you could see that hollowness of that snobbish attitude, which I think does not do any favor to American image. It's high time the American people, the American governments, told their staff at immigration points to behave more kindly and humanely to the people who decide to enter America. But with Canada, it was a completely different story. Whenever we have crossed border into Canada anywhere, despite the fact that they also take care of the documents and things properly, but they're so kind everywhere, so welcoming. They treat you like equal human beings. And so it was a very pleasant change when we entered at last the Canadian territory. There are some miles intervening between American border post and the Canadian border post. There is no man's land in between. As we went there, we were received with open arms and smiles, yet all the documents were checked. So it's not laxness on their part, it's the greatness of their moral standards, that they are very pleasant and welcoming at the borders where you enter Canada. There was just one little exception which was created by my grandson, Jalis, at the American post. He amazed us all because he's a very confident boy to run into the area where no foreigner is permitted, no immigrant is allowed. He shot straight into their office and started playing with their computers and this and that and everything, and created an uproar and they could not handle him. At last they decided to cooperate with him. One officer was dedicated only to him, and he inquired from him, what is that and what is this and what is this. He pointed his finger, he couldn't make the full sentence, pointed his finger at this and that and that and the machine and things. And poor officer was entirely dedicated to him. And then he started giving permission to other young boys from outside. Instead of the officers, he said, yes, you can come. And he would come and they couldn't stop. So he was the only source of relaxation. Even he brought smiles on the faces, the grim faces of the American immigration officers. And he started permitting other small boys to come into the office. And they couldn't stop him doing that. He said, yes, you come on. No, I tell you, you do, you come. And he occupied the American immigration office for that while, as if an alien had come from the heavens.
يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين أن حفيدي هذا جليس بعد أن تمكن من مراقبة هذا المكتب بدأ يستدعي الأطفال الآخرين أيضا في المنضمين إلى القافلة كي يدخلوا هم الآخرون ويشاركوا في عملية استكشاف هذا المكتب. ويقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين يبدو أنه كان هنالك استحواذ على هذه السلطة الأمريكية، ولكن هذا الاستحواذ يبدو وكأنه نزل من السماء.
السلام عليكم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.